And it got brought up in conversation when I was talking to Dara while I was in the cell. And she's like, well, just come here. And I was like, hold on. Like, I realized we've been talking and hanging out and everything, but we didn't really make it known. We weren't necessarily hiding it, but it wasn't made known. Does that make sense? And so for me to come out of jail and move into there, like, you have to tell the kids as dad that I'm living there.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's going to know this. And at the time, she was running a nonprofit in Lake County that helped aging people, or elderly. And I was like, I have a black cloud that everybody sees me with. And me getting close to you, that might touch you. Do you understand this?
Yeah. Welcome, veteran entrepreneurs. You're joining us here in Detroit, Michigan. We're on the eve of the Detroit Business Shower. I'm here with Dara and Tomy Parker, both of whom are longtime friends, advocates, and employees of Warrior Rising. I've had the opportunity to work with them for the past 3 years, and I'm really excited to finally get them on the podcast, interview them to both hear about their experiences, veterans, military spouses, advocates for the veteran community. They've evangelized on behalf of Warrior Rising for a period of years and have helped do a ton of great work in the veteran entrepreneur space. So I'm pretty jazzed to tell more stories from inside of our ecosystem, and really excited to talk to you guys today. Don't forget, if you want to sign up for Warrior Rising programs, right? If you're interested in becoming a veteran entrepreneur, you're interested in self-paced learning modules, continued coaching and mentorship, and of course, would like to be considered for participation in one of our national business showers, you can head over to warriorrising.org to sign up for our Warrior Academy. That's the first step. Of course, once you do that, you're on rails. We'd love to see you participating in our programs and help you start the next great American business. Dara and Tomy, I'd like to start this off with an icebreaker. Let's grease these skids a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I want us to feel loose today. And I think I have this great icebreaker. For those of you who don't know, icebreakers are a great way when in a group setting to just gauge people's general willingness to share things about themselves, small affectations. We do it at my gym, Cigar City CrossFit, before every workout. And I've had a couple other opportunities where we use icebreakers as a way to just just get to know folks and talk a little bit before you start diving into the deep stuff. So for today's icebreaker, I've used this one for a period of years. You have a choice. You are given a choice. You must fight to the death either 100 duck-sized horses, right? Small horses, size of a duck, or one horse-sized duck. The fight is to the death, okay? You cannot use weaponry that involves combustibles, right? So no gunpowder, no flamethrowers, no rocket launchers. Edged and bludgeoning weapons, I think, are acceptable, but it still feels a lot like hand-to-hand combat. Tomy, I'd like to start with you.
Ben, this is an easy choice. I'm in a wheelchair, so I'm going to mount swords onto the front of my wheelchair, and then I'm just going to mow the 100 duck-sized horses down.
You're going to go for the 100 duck-sized horses?
I'm just going to run them over in my chair.
Really?
Yeah, I think because, they're short. They're shorter than my chair, and I'm vertically challenged, so I think taking on a horse-sized duck would be difficult, but I think that 100 little horses that I could run them over. I really do. And they have hooves. They're not going to climb me. They don't have any, they're not going to band together and make a chain like monkeys or anything and climb over me. I got them. I'm going to run them over.
As I think through this is a practical answer for you.
Yeah, I'm going to run them over.
No, I got it. All right, I respect it. Have you seen the newest installment of the Mad Max films?
Yeah.
The homies got
Furiosa?
oh my God, yeah. Not as good as Fury Road, but the whole motorcycle chariot thing.
Yeah.
I just think that they're allocating their materials incorrectly. Like, it seems like they're missing a lot of stuff: toilet paper, food, water.
Yeah, but they're worried about fuel. It's America.
Yeah, but it seems like they all have access to acetylene torches and motorcycles. So I don't know what the hell's going on with that, but getting a little tangential. Dara, where do you stand on this? Where are you at on this icebreaker?
By the way, if I couldn't kill them, I would just enslave them and use them to pull me around like a chariot.
Oof, God, that'd be, yeah.
Well, growing up bird hunting, and raising chickens, I would probably just go for the one big duck.
You go for
I
the
could handle it. I could handle one big duck.
Really?
Yeah.
This
Pretty
thing is
confident.
the size of a horse.
Yeah. I'm good with those too. So I could take him.
Okay. I mean, I mean, I'm not saying you couldn't do it. I'm not saying
this is going to sound bad, but I've broken a lot of birds' necks over the years, and it's going to be a challenge because of the size.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty crafty.
Are you thinking you're going to take weapons or something like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, if definitely
Edge weapons.
Can we just? It would be terrifying to be chased by a horse-sized duck.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I could always jump on its back and break its neck too. That's
Jesus. Okay.
I could do it.
Yeah. It's dark, dude. But yeah, okay, I'll buy that. Listen, all right. So I'm gonna give you guys my take. Yeah, this is a good way. We should do this more. We should do this more often. Listen, for me personally, and I've thought about this a lot. The first time I encountered this icebreaker was in 2016. I was like in Lululemon. And there was like a bunch of, what they call educators, which are retail associates, and then Lululemon ambassadors. And this good friend of mine, Zach Bell, he's like, dude, this is the icebreaker I'm gonna kind of lead in with or whatever, right? And he had two icebreakers. One was, he was like, what's your worst Christmas present you've ever received? And I was like, don't do that, dude. You're gonna get really weird responses. You're gonna be really disappointed. You're gonna be shocked. And then he talked about the horse-sized duck versus duck-sized horses. And I was like, that one you should do. He ended up doing both. And the bad Christmas gift one, it went poorly. Like people weirdly, if you give an opportunity for people to talk about childhood trauma in a circle, they just lead with it. They'll just weirdly gravitate. They're like, oh, we're in a circle and it's sort of private. And you're asking me a personal question. I'm getting ready to talk about childhood trauma and cry.
It becomes a trauma off, kind of just like in Deadpool.
Yeah. It's a trauma off.
I've been through worse than you. I didn't have a house.
Yeah, when people started with that, I'm like, you're right, dude. You seem like you're doing worse. That being said, I've thought about this a lot since 2016. It doesn't plague me every day or anything like that, but I take it to bed with me sometimes. And for me, I just think that there's a place in the world for those tiny horses. You could get them to a petting zoo. They could somehow better society. And honestly, having to beat to death. And I've killed animals before, not out of cruelty or anything, just for legal purposes. I want to make that clear. But I've butchered or processed animals. And just to have 100 of those on my conscience, to have to walk around with that, that I just had to beat to death these little horses. I got enough shit going on. I don't need to add to my trauma by beating to death these little horses. But I'm going to tell you, there's no place in the world for a horse-sized duck. It's a monstrosity. If you set that thing loose down here in Detroit, they'd be causing all kinds of problems. They'd have to shut down the Jimmy Johns. It's a mess. So honestly, I'd be doing society a favor by beating this damn duck to death. And I've run into a couple of them down by my pond, and they're no good, man. I'm here to tell you, they're no good. I know people like them, these mallards or whatever, because they're pretty. But honestly, most of the ones that I run into down by my pond, they're assholes, man. So, you 100X one of these things is the size of a horse. Just run around downtown, causing all kinds of traffic jams. There's no place in the world I'd take it on. I'd take on the duck.
But yeah. There would still be, I like that you tried to make the horses beautiful creatures, but if you have to fight them to the death, then they're horses full of bloodlust, so they're not useful.
Ben.
I don't know. I know they're pack animals. I don't know how they're going to react, but honestly, it's for me in this scenario, I don't got to worry about it. I'm taking out the duck. I get it for you.
But the 100 horses still exist, and if you put them in a petting zoo, now you just had toddlers trampled by bloodlusted horses.
Look, I think I would set height and age requirements for that for that petting zoo.
Sense. Yeah,
they need to be accompanied by a parent. Obviously, there's going to be people in there.
They have to be taller than a duck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is what I'm talking about. You ask a question like this, you're going to end up thinking about it. So listen, Dara, Tommy, both of you guys. It's interesting. Both you two were the first people that I had outside of Casey Maxted. Were the first two people that I had opportunity to talk to at length about Warrior Rising. So the first time I met everybody from Warrior Rising, I was working with Casey Maxted on his project, Cold Zero Spirits, right? And helping him establish that brand, helping him grow it, all this kind of great stuff. And we were just still in the ideation phases or phase of the business at this point. But he was like, hey, I want you to come out and meet these guys from Warrior Rising. I'm out here with them. Come hang out. We'll go to Army, Navy, all this kind of great stuff. And I had the opportunity to meet you and Dara. You and Dara were the first people that I talked to at Link. I remember because it was, post-COVID, and me, you, and Dara, and Nate Boyer walked for about 15 blocks back to the hotel. And I just had an opportunity to talk to you guys for a pretty long period of time. Unbeknownst to me that I would have an opportunity to work with you guys for a period of years. Tommy, you and I would have an opportunity to share a stage together on multiple occasions. I'd have the opportunity to see you guys get engaged, like all this kind of stuff, right? It's interesting where life takes us. So I think it's like really interesting, first and foremost, that you guys were the people that I had the most substantive contact with initially when I first came into the organization. Obviously, got a chance to meet and talk to a bunch of other folks. But, I'd love to hear more about your individual stories. What got you here today? What your experience has been like in the military as a military spouse, all this kind of great stuff. And tell me, I'd like to kind of start with you. I'd like to hear about what brought you. You're a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. You can't say ex-Marine. Are you able to say former Marine?
So I'm not a person you should really ask about that thing because I don't agree with the once a Marine, always a Marine thing.
Yeah.
In my opinion, you're looking at life as like you peaked at one point in time, because without getting into my story, like I was a Marine for 4 years and then I was a drug addict for almost 10.
Yeah.
And I'm 34, so that's a third of my life. So
yeah,
you would identify with the thing you've done the longest, correct?
Yeah.
So wouldn't that make me a drug addict? But
I heard that. It's like if somebody was like once a drug addict, always a drug addict. I'd be like, yo, I don't like how you said that. You know what I mean?
And so I think that it causes you to view it a place you peaked. Like everybody knows one person that always tells you about how good of a football player they were in high school.
Yeah.
That's when they peak. That's when they view themselves as the greatest. So like, are there still Marine traits in me? Without a doubt.
Yeah.
But I'm Tommy at the end of the day.
I love that outlook, right? And I love it because I think in a lot of ways when people talk about veteran transition and how it's like really tough to move on, I think, and I've had an opportunity to talk about this with different people on the staff, where you see the guy that gets out of the military and he's like still showing pictures of his everyday carry, and he's got like a K-Pod with like quad nods on it, and he's like weirdly invested $75,000 to potentially, participate in conventional warfare somewhere, even though this individual has been like, transitioned out of the military for a period of years, and they're just like, hey, I'm just trying to stay prepared. I'm like, hey, dude, you live in Atlanta, dude. You know what I'm saying? You ate artisanal donuts this morning and drank a $12 latte. It does not strike me that you're prepared for anything.
When they can't make it up the stairs either. Like a set of 5 stairs is difficult, but they got $75,000 worth of gear.
Yeah, but when I see that, I'm like, damn, dude, that does not seem like healthy transition. Right? And it seems like, to your point, potentially they see their military service as the best thing that they've ever done. And I don't think there's a problem with that per se. I think people should be proud of their service. But when I look at my military service, I love it, and it was a huge part of my life, and it's a huge part of who I am now. But I would like to think that I'm doing bigger and better things now. And I think a big part of transition from the military is like moving on to do bigger and better things, and to feel proud, not just about your past, but also your present and your future. I think that's a big deal. I'm glad you said that. So what brought you to the Marines? Like, what did your journey look like? And why'd you choose the Marines? Tell me a little bit about that stuff.
I wish that my journey was cool or altruistic like a bunch of other people's. Like that said that they saw 9/11 happen and they felt inspired to do something or something like that. Like I was in 6th grade when 9/11 happened. I was eating cereal. It didn't even really impact me as to what occurred. Like I was 12. How do I understand what happened? I watched a plane hit a building on TV.
You're 12, yeah.
Yeah, I
eat Fruit Loops,
or Cocoa Puffs. I don't know. It's some delicious breakfast cereal, which helped me get this physique. Anyway, but as I went through school, I didn't take school seriously. I went to school to play sports and hang out with friends at school. And so when my senior year came around and I sent some stuff off to colleges to try to go to college to play sports, which I thought I could do because I thought it was awesome. Colleges said I could come, but they weren't going to give me any scholarship money.
Yeah.
And I come from the middle of nowhere, Montana, and my family couldn't afford to send me to college. So the military was the next choice that made sense. I'd gotten out of high school and I'd been working as an arborist for like 6 months.
Nice.
So I was doing manual labor, and I was working for my uncle who had started the business.
Yeah.
And I remember my buddy Frank that I went to high school with wanted me to talk to the Marine Corps recruiter, and I wasn't really sure about it because I'd talked to them in high school, and they told me I was too fat.
Yeah.
By 3 pounds. It was the day wrestling season started, and he's like, "Hey, you weigh 3 pounds too much. Come talk to me when you weigh the right." And I was like,
See you tomorrow.
"Why don't you just come see me at 5:30 when practice is over, and I'll weigh it."
I will be 5 pounds less at the end of wrestling practice.
But it put a bad taste in my mouth, so I was kind of apprehensive about the military in general. But it was perfect timing. It was winter time. I looked at my uncle. I looked at my life, and I was like, that is what I'm going to become. And I didn't want that. Looking around at all the men in my family and everything, I was like, I don't want this. I don't want your 9 to 5 life. I don't want manual labor the rest of my life. I don't want that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else here that's going to give me anything out of that other than the military, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I joined the Marine Corps. And the purpose of joining the Marine Corps actually also came from my uncle. My uncle joined the Marine Corps during Vietnam. He actually graduated boot camp the day the Camp David Peace Accords was signed.
Oh, wow.
He was in boot camp when they signed him. He remembers everybody running out in the street and MCRD and everything.
Damn.
And so he told me the Marine Corps was going to be the hardest one.
Yeah.
And so I was like, cool, I have this part inside of me that I want to see if things can break me.
Why'd you feel that way?
You
were a wrestler. You did wrestling.
Yeah, I've been that way my whole life. I want to see if things can break me.
All right.
Just like can I push myself that far? Because when you go down that road, you find out that the only thing that has the power to break you is you.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to try to touch that glass ceiling, if you will.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I ever have. I get weak at times. I'm not trying to say I'm a cool dude.
No, man.
And so I wanted that challenge. I wanted to see what was up. Joined the Marine Corps, and it was difficult. But to be honest, and this might offend some Marines that watch this, it wasn't any harder than wrestling practice. The physical aspect of boot camp wasn't any harder than wrestling practice.
Just for all the listeners out there that don't participate in combat sports, like wrestling is by far probably one of the most physically arduous and demanding sports on the face of the planet. You're pitted against another human being whose sole purpose is to pin you on your back or throw you or push you out of a ring. It's bananas. If you understand legitimately what it takes to be the best in a state or the nation as a wrestler, based on the amount, the chances of you being the best wrestler are it is a true tournament model. There's thousands of them, and literally it's 1 or 2 per state have the ability to actually progress. So when you see those wrestlers that are competing at that level, you don't have a concept of how good they actually are. It's absolutely bonkers. It's torturous. Some wrestler broke my toe a few months ago. It was awful. Largely unreported in the news that I had a broken toe from wrestling practice. If you're looking to start wrestling in your 40s, you'll break something.
You probably just shouldn't.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't, dude. I don't even like doing a lunge, much less shooting at people and all this crazy stuff. Well, Dara, what about you? What was going on with you during September 11th? How old were you? What was your perception of the military at this time? Tell me a little bit about that. Where were you when Tommy was doing all this wacky stuff with these Marines and everything else?
Yeah, so when 9/11 happened, Tommy and I were in some trailer buildings that we were going to 6th grade in because we were getting a new school built.
Yeah.
And
what do they called them? The portables.
Portables.
Yeah, you're out there in the portables.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were like, these are going to be gone soon. Then meanwhile, I was my entire high school career was in portables.
Yeah. And I just think that I didn't realize how long the repercussions from that would last. We're in the same grade. We grew up together.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that my friend Tommy in 6th grade, would later be going to war because of some, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No concept. You're clearly this isn't going to still be a thing. 6 damn years from now, we're not still going to be embroiled in asymmetric combat, across 2 fronts or whatever,
Yeah. But so after high school, Tommy joined the Marine Corps, and I got married and adopted 4 kids. And I went to college, and I started several different businesses. And so I really practiced being a businesswoman and a good mother.
Yeah.
And
Those
then
are hard things to juggle at the same time.
yes,
You know what I mean?
I'm really pretty good at task management and getting a lot done in one day because of that. And then we reconnected, how many years after we got out of high school? I don't know.
The first time?
Yeah.
It would have been, the first time that we reconnected after high school would have been right before I deployed, I think. So Dara's oldest adopted son is the same age as my youngest brother.
Yeah.
And I was home on pre-deployment leave, and I went to go watch my brother play baseball, and her son was playing baseball as well.
Yeah.
And I told her I was going to combat, and then I want to let her tell the rest of the story because honestly, I don't remember any of this occurrence, and the way that she tells it, I think is hilarious.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure you had a lot on your mind getting ready to deploy. But I think what's interesting is just you guys have known each other since you were kids. You guys have known each other since you were kids, right? And I imagine a lot of stuff has changed since then. And I think it's interesting that both of you, at least, there's the through line in your lives at this point, like to date, is you two, right? Like that's the primary through line. You guys have known each other since at least you were 12 and have continued to know each other throughout the years, right? And it's weird, like it's almost like gravity, the way like people get pulled together, they'll meander away from each other, just to end up back in the same place. And I think that's a special and cool thing.
Invisible string theory. Look that up.
Visible string theory?
Yeah, look up invisible string theory. It's where life brings two people together when they're ready to be together. Like they've been connected the whole time.
Yeah.
And it will connect them when they're supposed to be together.
Yeah.
Because like we've known each other since we were 6. I tried to date her in high school. Wasn't interested in me, but now I'm married to her.
Damn, even though you were on the wrestling team and everything?
Yeah,
He was wiggling his eyebrows at me, but I saw him wiggling his eyebrows at other people too. So I think I had to let him, grow up a little bit first.
Tommy was busy. You know what I mean? Tommy was busy.
I think the word's promiscuous.
Yeah, okay. That too.
Well, it could be Fergie anthem.
I was trying to be forgiving in my description of you at that point in time. Well, all right. So tell me that story about how you saw him on, right, you were on deployment leave, pre-deployment leave. I want to hear two things. I want to hear that story, but I want to know what was it like to see him from the time when he was just 12, you know what I'm saying? Wrestling, run around on mats and all this kind of stuff, getting cauliflower or whatever. To after you had joined the Marine Corps and left, come back, like what did that look like? What did you see transform, or what was different about this kid that you had known back in the day to now this full grown ass man getting ready to go deploy to combat with the Marine Corps?
Yeah, so Tommy has always been super playful, and then just walking the line of the rules, really testing them out, having deep conversations with people who maybe don't want to have deep conversations in that moment. He likes to get people riled up, make sure they're paying attention. So He's been like that since we were kids. Even during wrestling practice, I remember you running a lot. I wrestled with him one year. But so we are at the baseball fields and I run into him, and I was so terrified for him that something bad was going to happen to him. And he was like, nope, I'm going to the front. It's going to be great. I remember you having so much energy. Although looking back, I don't know what kind of energy it was, but I just remember like giving you a hug, being like, is this the last time that I'm ever going to see you? And so, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that would make me emotional. Yeah. And then I got the call that you had been injured. And yeah, it was super hard to think of you that way and wonder how you'd be when you got home. But when I got to see you when you came home, I waited. I didn't go where all the crowds were because, there was a big fundraiser for him. Our town was very welcoming. Our airport was a mile away and people were lined up the whole way, procession getting him home.
Yeah.
But I waited until all that was over and I went and visited him at the bowling alley, which is his parents own the bowling alley. So there wasn't a ton of other people around.
Yeah.
And he was still the same smart ass guy, but there's just such a cynical cloud kind of hanging over him.
Yeah.
But it made more sense later on because of what happened after that.
Okay. Let's talk about that. Tommy, tell me about that deployment.
So I deployed to Sangin, Afghanistan, September 28th of 2010 with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment.
Yep.
And we went there to do counterinsurgency operations and interact with the locals and everything. And on December 11th, I'm going to speed through the deployment. because we don't need to get into the details. We just need to get into what changed my life. December 11th of 2010, while on a dismounted foot patrol, we had gone up to blow some IEDs for a local farmer that were near his house. And I want everybody that listens to this to understand, because they have a weird view of Afghanistan. Imagine where you lived if you have kids, and out by the stop sign by your house, you know that right in the bushes there is an IED, and your kids play out there. And so that's what this guy did. He approached us. He's like, hey, this isn't safe for my kids. We went out there, we blew it up, and we went back to our base. Well, almost getting back to our base, it was about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We took rear contact. I was the last guy in the patrol. We halted, looked behind us, tried to figure out where we got shot at from. Couldn't, decided to continue to push forward in a leapfrog manner. For those of you that don't know, that means that one person will stay set, the other person will run past them, and then the front person will set, and they'll essentially play the game of leapfrog. We had really only leaped about twice when my ears felt funny. For those of you that play football, it's like being slapped on both of your ear holes on a football helmet, discombobulated.
Yep.
And I was in the air. I felt weightless. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty with this because it can get kind of gruesome. But I stepped on an IED with my left leg. It amputated my left leg very high and destroyed it. And then the right leg was amputated just above the ankle initially. And now it had to be cut back to just above my knee on my left leg, or on my right leg. And my left leg is cut back all the way to my hip, because when I stepped on the IED with my left leg, it shattered my femur and it shifted and it slit but didn't sever my femoral artery.
Yeah.
So they ended up having to cut my stomach above on the helicopter and clamp my femoral artery above my pelvis so I didn't bleed to death.
Yeah.
And then that happened December 11th. I ended up in Bethesda, Maryland, December 15th or 14th. I was back in America very, very quickly. And I spent 8 weeks in the hospital there. And then what Dara was talking about when we saw each other in Montana, I hate to say this because I know I've offended people, but this is the best way for people to understand. We're from the middle of nowhere. There's more cows than people. And because of how isolated we are, in 2010, I think that most of the people in Montana had forgot that America was at war.
Yeah.
Because it hadn't touched anybody there locally in a long time.
Long time.
And so I get injured. I come home in the way that I am, and everybody is like, whoa,
Yeah.
there's still a war happening?
Still happening.
And I don't mean that by any disrespect or saying that anybody locally didn't have any patriotism. I don't mean any of that. You just forget about things that aren't touching you.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You said a couple interesting things just now. First and foremost, you were describing the Afghan people. I had chances to fight in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And Iraq was kind of a complicated situation. But, Afghanistan, it's like the reasons for us being there at the time, at least, were really clear. It's like, hey, man, these guys provided shelter, aid, places to train for, Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, the Taliban, this kind of stuff, AQIZ, Haqqani networks, whatever, insert name of terrorist group here. But essentially, they provided safe haven to Osama bin Laden, who had orchestrated the attacks on September 11th. We had to go get his ass. Like, pretty simple, dude. Like, almost 3,000 people got killed on American soil. It was an unprovoked attack. So it's like, yo, you're about to get it. You know what I'm saying? We're going to have some get back now. So, but, we killed this guy in 2011. And potentially after that, it was kind of like, damn, what are we still doing here, right? But I will tell you this, like, it was easy for me to identify with the Afghan people in a lot of different ways. They're pious. They're very religious, and I've seen the difference between people that have religion as part of an integrated part of their culture or their family or whatever the case may be, versus people who are like pious. Like, I believe when I die, I'm either going to heaven or going to hell, this kind of thing. So very religious people. Their literacy rate in some cases is below 20%. This like in some places it's 87% illiteracy rate. And it's like, what, I want you to, what would a rural illiterate American do if there was a bunch of uniformed guys with guns walking around in their backyard? Bro, we'd shoot at them. You know what I'm saying? We would try to attack them, 100%. So yeah, it makes a ton of sense in the world that as we're, traveling from valley to valley in this place, a bunch of weird Americans wearing a bunch of weird stuff. essentially walking around in somebody's, backyard, their grape orchard, yeah, I'm going to want to shoot at them too. Yeah, I'm going to ask them to get this, like, hey, this IED is kind of, for all intents and purposes, it's here because of you, dude. Like, get over here and police this thing up. Clean it up, dude. My kids are going to step on it. And I had a great deal of respect for the Afghan. I felt like a lot of times the Iraqi would fight for either like money and power. It just seemed like extended versions of organized crime. And that was especially true when I was in the special forces and we were managing sources and stuff like this. But the Afghan, it seemed like they fought for family and respect. And one of the things that I realized is, people that are fighting for money and power aren't necessarily willing to die for it. But if you're fighting for family and respect, they'll die for that shit. There were days where we could hear the Afghans on the radio. They'd be like, don't come out unless you're ready to die today. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, I was like, that's certainly not the new, we had these guys that are LLVI team that are like listening to the radios and they're like, yo, LT, they're saying don't come out today unless you're willing to die. What do you want to tell the guys? I was like, not that shit. I was like, I'm not telling my guys to not walk out there unless they're ready to die today. That's no good for morale. But yeah, it was just really interesting. And it sounds like you had an opportunity to interact with the Afghan probably in a way that's very different, particularly being that you were in Sangin. For those of you that don't know, Sangin is in Helmand province. And at one point in time, there were so many KIAs happening in Sangin, a place that was largely controlled by the British for a long period of time, who are our allies in that conflict, that they started using the code word Sangin as for KIAs, the British did, because that particular place was so notorious for pretty bad combat. So you're on your way back home. You got treated like a hero when you came home, right? And there's all of a sudden this stark reminder that the war is still happening. It's still touching small communities across the United States. Certainly touched you. Dara saw it firsthand in the bowling alley. So what's life like now? What are you doing now that you're back home? What's the next step?
So when I went back home the first time, I didn't stay home that time. I went back to Balboa Naval Medical Center in California.
Yeah.
And I tried to finish my enlistment in the Marine Corps, was what I really wanted to do. I wanted to try to see it through as I learned to navigate my now, if I wasn't holding the microphone, I'd do air quotes, disabled life.
Yeah.
But while all that was going on, I got myself addicted to pain pills.
Yeah.
And then in 2012, my dad took his life, and I went to Hawaii to go take care of his estate. And while I was in Hawaii taking care of his estate, the DOD offered me my medical retirement, and I was like 3 or 4 months short of my 4-year enlistment. I said, cool, I'm done.
Yeah.
And so I was addicted to Oxycontin at the time, and I believed that when I moved back to Montana that I would stop using drugs. I have no idea why I thought that I was like, oh yeah, just geographic change, cool. You're no longer a drug addict. It'll be that simple. And it wasn't. I moved back to Montana. I started, and I guess I should say part of the reason I believed that I could get sober is that the doctors weren't prescribing me narcotics anymore. I'd crossed that threshold and was now getting them from the street. And so I assumed that I wouldn't know the people in Montana to get them from.
Yeah.
But that's a lie. A drug addict can find a drug addict, an alcoholic can find an alcoholic.
I bet you found it in 24 hours, man.
You just look for the people that look like you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was pretty simple. I found it, and then I started doing drugs and abusing drugs up there. I got given all sorts of stuff. Like, this is a very important part of why I aligned with Warrior Rising and why I kind of see the world the way I do. Is so in 2012, there were nonprofits giving veterans everything. Like there were so many nonprofits that honestly weren't even legitimate. They were just like guys would start a nonprofit so they could take their bros hunting. And I got given it. This is no word of a lie, and it's hilarious to me. For Christmas, December 25th of 2010, an unnamed nonprofit brought me shoes. I was laying in a hospital bed in Bethesda, Maryland, and they set shoes, sweatpants, and socks at the foot of my bed, where my feet should have been.
Yeah.
And then said, "Merry Christmas, Marine," and headed out.
I don't mean to be insensitive. What kind of shoes were they?
There were some high dollar Nikes, man.
Damn, they for real? They were like some dunks or
they were
shit?
good. They weren't dunks. I mean, dunks weren't a big thing back then. They were
Yeah.
like Nike Clouds or something, whatever was big in 2010.
Damn.
And I had organizations continue to give me shoes every year for a couple years. And none of them noticed that I changed the shoe size all the time. I would just call friends and family and be like, who needs a pair of shoes?
Yeah.
And then I would get that size and have it sent to me. And so there's a ton of nonprofits just giving people stuff. And I got given a house by a nonprofit that I completely disrespected, because although everybody outside of me was telling me that I'm a hero, I didn't feel that internally.
You didn't feel that way internally?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. And so I felt like a dude that put his foot in the wrong spot. That's all it is.
Yeah.
That is what this is the consequence of a misplaced step.
Yeah.
But I had people telling me, you're an inspiration, you're this, you're like Dara said, like the old Tommy was still in there. And I had people telling me that. And so I fractured myself into two people. The one that had like the real feelings and was trying to understand what it was like to be disabled. What's life going to be like now? I was left-handed. How do I be right-handed? How do I do all these things? And then the other one that everybody was like, oh, you're an inspiration, dude. You're awesome. You don't let anything get you down. And so I had that facade in the front of me the whole time. Well, the inside of me was turning caustic.
Yeah.
And because I never got that under control for a decade, my addiction ramped up. It went from pain pills to heroin to meth. I lost the house that I had. I lost everything that had been given to me because of my quote unquote hero status.
Yeah.
And I had taken a high dive from my elevated status, trying to find what rock bottom looked like.
Yeah.
And I did it all for a long time hidden because everybody thought I was a hero.
Yeah. I want to hear about what rock bottom looked like in a second, if you're willing to go there.
Dude, we can go anywhere you want to go.
Dude,
I'm an
let's
open
go.
book.
I'm ready to get into the deep end. I'm ready to talk that shit. But Dara, were you around for this? You saw all this happening? Did you see all this going down?
So it's amazing how you can live in a small town and never run into people.
Yeah.
But meth and drug use is a huge problem on our reservation we live on.
Yeah.
And so my life had been personally affected by a
Use.
lot of different people that used meth a lot.
You just seen it, and you seen
It's
it
a reason that I have 4 adopted kids.
Yeah.
Yep. And so we didn't see each other very often, maybe once or twice during that time.
Yeah.
But I knew by the second time I saw him, I knew something was off.
Something was off.
Yep. And then we ran into each other again, and I knew for sure something was off.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You guys want to unpack that?
Huh? We can.
Is it classroom appropriate? Is it PG-13?
No,
Oh, it's PG-13.
It's fine. It's just further ahead in the story.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I want to hear about that. Tell me about rock bottom, Tommy.
Okay. So I had you back up because my quote unquote rock bottom happened before her and I crossed paths again.
Okay.
And I want to say this because I don't believe rock bottom exists. It doesn't.
I don't either. I don't think it exists.
I told my mom this because she kept telling me, my mom, and I would talk every time I got arrested and stuff like that. I would call her and be like, hey, I'm in jail. Okay, cool. Now I know where you're at.
Yeah.
And she was crying one time and was like, I just want you to hit rock bottom so I can have the Tommy the old Tommy back.
Yeah.
And so there's 2 things to unpack in that. First of all, that Tommy doesn't exist. Just like the Ben before combat doesn't exist. That Ben died.
Yeah.
The Tommy before combat died. The Tommy before being a drug addict is dead.
Yeah.
And this version of Tommy that needed to find his way out of that muck is what exists now. So this applies to anybody. If you go to somebody looking for a previous version of them in their current selves, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I've done that a couple times in my life. Gone back to somebody or something, thinking it would be the same thing that I had loved that whole time, whether it was like the military or a person or whatever the case may be. And you're right. That thing's, when you go back, you're like, that thing isn't the thing anymore.
Either you evolved or it evolved, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. It's not the same. And it's not to say that you can't ever go back. Just sure, it's tough to. Sometimes it's better off if you just move forward, I reckon.
Yes and no, because like Dara and I's story, like our co-evolution brought us to a place that we could.
Yeah, and it's weird because you guys sort of met in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Great.
And so the rock bottom, I told my mom, like, rock bottom doesn't exist. I've been to rock bottom. It has a basement, and I dug a basement beneath that.
Yeah.
But I guess what you could say would be my rock bottom is when my first charge stuck. So for a long time, me being a drug addict and me being a hero, the community was like, oh, he's a veteran. Like I literally had people tell me that if I'd gone through what you went through, I'd probably do heroin too. Like it was some weird permission slip, which isn't okay. And so I'd been incarcerated for a while. I completely lost everything. And I'd crossed the threshold where I didn't think I could come back from. Very early in my addiction, to steal power from other people's words, I called myself an addict.
Yeah.
Not like an addict that's in NA that uses it as like, no, this is what I've overcome. But I just said it that way you couldn't use it against me.
Yeah.
And then when I crossed from being that to a junkie where I started using needles, I took that moniker on like, nope, this is my identity. This is who I am. And because it meshed with me so well, I never thought that I could tear it off.
Yeah.
It almost became symbiotic. Like it was a part of me. Like I'm a junkie. That's just what junkies do. And I use it as a permission slip to steal from people, to act like a piece of shit, whatever, because they'd be like, how could you do that? I'm a junkie, man. What did you expect? And so I had completely become this person that thought that they were going to stay stuck in a revolving cycle of jail cells, drug houses, jail cells, drug houses, until eventually I either stayed in prison, cops killed me, or my addiction did. Those are the only three ways out of that.
Yeah.
And that's what I was okay with. I didn't think that I had anything else to offer society beyond what had become.
Yeah.
I was raised by people that you're only as good as what you can do with your hands. And when I was 21, I was forced to sit down and lost one hand. So I didn't think I had anything to provide to society.
Yeah.
Very broken, very lost individual. And the very first time I got released from jail was September 16th. My birthday is September 18th. So 2 days later, I ran into Dara in Missoula at a gas station. She had been at a doctor's appointment the night before with her son, and I'll let her tell that part. But in my infinite wisdom, when I got released from jail September 16th, I was like, you know what? I haven't done meth for a long time, but it's my birthday, so I deserve it.
Yeah.
And so I did some meth, and I was disappointed with the quality of meth that I did. And so I drove to Missoula to buy better quality meth so I could be higher, because it was my birthday and I deserved it.
Yeah. Birthday meth.
Yes, birthday meth. You know, I say it that way on purpose because there's so many people that are like, oh, well, I've gone a long time without smoking a cigarette. I could probably have a cigarette. No, you can't. Like, just don't do it.
Don't
Just
smoke the cigarette. No birthday cigarettes.
Don't reward yourself with things that you know that are bad for yourself, or that you know that you can't put down. But so I was going to say a weird euphemism. I was very, very high, like looking down on commercial airlines high.
Yeah.
And I pull up to a gas station, and Dara comes out the door, and I'd grown up with her. I had known her, and I have to use this word. She was my great white buffalo.
Sure.
You know, like I took a couple shots and I missed every single time. I couldn't. She was squirrely. I couldn't get it. And so I was like, what? Let's knock another arrow and see if we can hit this time.
Yeah.
And so
you were high on methamphetamine at this point.
Yeah. I mean, there was some blood in my meth. Yeah, in my blood system. Yeah.
Jeez, shit. Okay.
And I'm like, hey, come here. And she comes over, and I thought of something real smooth to say, you know. And I was like, what's up? And so I talked to her a little bit, and I'm doing my best to not appear high.
Yeah.
And in the back seat of my red Durango are a bunch of wacky inflatable arm guys. And I don't mean like the ones you actually plug in. There's just really high people just doing weird stuff in the back seat.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, I'm not high.
Yeah, and you just got this like crazy cast of characters.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
God,
like you know what I'm talking about. If you go to like a gas station at 3 a.m, you've seen the people I'm talking about.
Yeah,
those were my friends. You know, so
yeah, it's like a rated R version of Sanford and Son. It's just a goddamn mess. You know what I'm
there's
saying?
a lot of weirdness going on.
Yeah.
People are picking at things and moving in weird positions, like they're popping and locking, dancing. There's a lot going on.
Dubstep's playing shit.
Yeah, no, not dubstep. I thought it was very, very hood. So probably loud rap music, like some Young Dolph or something. You know, you never know.
So, Dara, well, I've got an accurate picture of what's going on here. You shot your shot. You said what's up. Dara, I want to hear about this. Tell me what's going on in your head. You're at the gas station, presumably with a sick son.
Yeah, so he'd had surgery the night before, and I'd stayed up all night mopping the blood off of him because he like had a bad reaction, was coughing up blood all night.
Damn.
And so
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little rough.
Yeah.
Leaving the hospital,
Everybody's
trying to get gas.
Everybody's having a rough day, you know?
And so I talked to him for a little while, but his eyes weren't right?
Yeah.
His eyes weren't right. And he asked me out for coffee, and I was like, oh, yeah. Like that kind of, yeah.
Bro, do you know what's that song by Rihanna where she's talking about we fell in love in a hopeless place? Holy shit, the Sicko and Methuselah or wherever you guys are talking about is the place. That song is about you guys. Jesus. So all right, so you're in a red Durango with a bunch of methamphetamine addicts. You're covered in blood and shit. Both of you guys are at the Sicko. He invites you to coffee. This ended in you guys being married. No. Okay. No, but it did.
I may have ignored him for a few more months.
Okay.
But he didn't try that hard. Coffee is not trying that hard.
Okay, not trying that hard. All right. Okay. So what happens? So look, tell me, how do you guys finally meet in the middle? You had just gotten out of jail, not prison. It was your birthday, so you were doing some birthday meth.
Yep.
But a couple months later, you guys end up on a date. How did you get from birthday meth to first date, presumably getting coffee?
So I want to add that I don't like the taste of coffee. It's angry bean juice. I just wanted to hang out with her.
Yeah.
But so in that time frame, that was the time where my probation officer was rather upset at me. And so for every 2 weeks, she would send me to jail for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was like a weird vacation. And I got released from jail December 6th one time, which was a Friday. And everybody in the block was like, we'll see you Monday.
Yeah.
And I got rearrested December 8th, which was Sunday. And I didn't even make it through the weekend.
Yeah.
And me being wise at this point in time, I was like, you know what? I have a problem. Will you send me to treatment?
Really? You asked to go to treatment?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. And so I've been to 9 treatment centers total.
Sure.
And so that was the very last one, or second to last one that they sent me to. And I requested to go to a VA treatment center.
Okay.
Because the VA allows you to have tobacco in your cell phone. And that's cool. We can do that.
No, that's pretty cool.
And so while I was in the treatment center, Dara posted a picture of some food that she had cooked I think it was on Snapchat. It was a steak and like some not raspberries, strawberries and some asparagus. It was like a strawberry salad, some steak and some asparagus.
No, I like a good summer spring salad, some strawberries and shit.
And I'm fat. Like I'm fat internally, externally. I just said I love food,
I don't think you're fat.
Thank you. Maybe the molecules in me are hot, so they're expanded. I don't know. But and so I reached out to her and I was like, "What? You can cook too?" And so we started talking, and for some reason, I decided to be authentic with her. I decided to tell her everything, more than she needed to know.
Yeah.
And like we started video calling each other regularly, and to steal words from her, we became each other's solace.
Okay.
And it gave us a bedrock to build upon, even though like when we first started talking, we didn't want to date.
Yeah.
Like it was nothing like that. It wasn't anything like, we were just talking.
Yeah. And you guys were sharing some personal shit that you guys probably figured were like, hey, listen, when you share personal things, sometimes truly personal things, and you're being really honest, people, people are like, honestly, you ever hear that phrase, honesty is the best policy? You're like, word? Like, because my brothers and sisters in Christ, I could be pretty malevolent. And when I'm being really honest, it's pretty ugly sometimes, right? And honesty can be ugly. And I think real relationships, real partnerships that require honesty means looking at ugly stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to be able to be in the same room with your partner while they're taking a poop. I know not everybody's comfortable with that, but that's actually an analogy. What I'm meaning to say is
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too. In our household, we're good there. But I say that as an analogy to be like, you gotta get familiar with people's shit, and that kind of honesty. I imagine, particularly from the path that you guys took, it wasn't you're sharing these terrible things. Both of you guys were probably like, man, I'm just sharing a bunch of really ugly stuff about myself. I'm sure this person isn't even into it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it sounds like, well, I'm sitting here with you in the present. You're both married. You know what I'm saying? So it's that turned into a real relationship. Yeah. Yeah,
but it wasn't, like I said, something that we thought would happen. And then I actually even relapsed again after that treatment center. And this is, I want to bring this up because this is where I truly made a change. This and then another scenario, I'll tell both of them. And so I relapsed. I got out of that treatment center. I quit using drugs when I got out of the treatment center, but I didn't stop the lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I was still around it. And there's that old adage, if you sit in a barber chair enough, you get your hair cut. And so I got my hair cut,
Yeah.
And I relapsed and I told Dara about it. I was like, hey, like, I'm back to being a piece of shit. You're clearly not a piece of shit. So I bid you adieu. And she's like, no. I was like, what do you mean no? Like, she's like, I don't like you do drugs, but that's not you. And I like you. Which completely, at the time, my hand's shaking from holding this microphone, which at the time completely shook me because I was like, what, you're saying I'm fake? That I'm not being real? Like, what do you, like, and it made me very upset, but I got rearrested after that. And I got taken to the jail that I started this whole charge with. A jail I called the Dungeon in Lake County, Montana. It is a jail that is beneath the courthouse that holds less than 60 people. It is a horrible little jail. And I assumed that I would have to go to prison and sit the rest of my charge. Like I was like, oh, this is what happened. You know, I ate the meal. I got to pay the bill. That's what happens. And I called Dara from in there and talked to her and everything. And I told her, I said, hey, like I'm going away for a bit.
I'm gonna have to eat the charge. You know, I'm gonna have to get sentenced.
You're too incredible of an individual. Please don't wait for me. Please. And she says, no, I'm waiting for you. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like I'm legless, homeless, a drug addict. Like what do I have to offer?
Yeah, incarcerated.
Like what am I providing you? And then I got given an opportunity to go to a treatment center, but I had to sit in jail until I could go to the treatment center, or I had to find a place that would allow me to stay there until a bed opened. My mom wasn't going to let me at her house. None of my siblings were, nothing.
Good for them.
I don't blame them. I really don't.
Good for them.
When you have people in your life that are causing problems like that, you have to put a wall in the way or else they're going to destroy your life.
I get it. I get it.
And it got brought up in conversation when I was talking to Dara while I was in the cell. And she's like, well, just come here. And I was like, hold on. Like I realized we've been talking and hanging out and everything, but we didn't really make it known. Like we weren't necessarily hiding it, but it wasn't made known. Does that make sense? And so for me to come out of jail and move into there, like you have to tell the kids' dad that I'm living there. Like everybody's going to know this. And at the time she was running a nonprofit in Lake County that helped aging people or elderly. And I was like, I have a black cloud that everybody sees me with. And me getting close to you, that might touch you. Do you understand this? And she's like, no, I'm gonna take the risk. And so I call my attorney, who calls the prosecutor. Both my attorney and the prosecutor called Dara. And they're like, do you know who you're letting in your home?
That must have been a tough conversation. And
she could tell that part. But I ended up being released to go do this. And before I got released, I made her a promise. I brushed my teeth one night and I had an honest encounter with reality. I was looking into my little stainless steel mirror, brushing my teeth. And I was like, is this what you want? Is this what you want to do? Like, you've made it this far. You've made it 10 years. You can live this life. You've shown you can survive here. But you know where this goes. Is this what you want? And it wasn't. But I didn't know what else I could do or what else I wanted to be. But I just knew that had to be done. And so I talked to her the next day and I made her a promise. I said, hey, if I get out of here and we work out, I will never put meth or my old lifestyle above you. Never will. Had no idea if I could believe it at the time. I was like, no, those like, everybody said a statement where words fall out of their mouth and they're like, oh shit, I wish I could grab those out of the air and bring them back. Because I wasn't sure if I could uphold that word. I was able to, but I wasn't sure.
Okay. So Dara, you let Tomy into your home. He gets through his last time in treatment. Tell me, what does your relationship look like at that point? What are things looking? You had opened your home to this man, provided him a place to be and hold space until he goes off to treatment, comes back from treatment. What year is this? What do things look like at this point? What is this? How are you feeling about this guy and these steps that you've taken to help insulate him, in some cases from his own life, to create one that's better, right? Tell me about it.
So I think it was 2019.
Okay.
And I had done a lot of soul searching after my divorce, and I just was very firm in the belief that you can't change who people are. You have to love them how they are. But you can create opportunities for people to grow, and then they can choose whether they want to or not. And so I was very firm in that belief. And then I know you guys were talking about how people change throughout their life, and you're never exactly the same person. But I would disagree and say that there is still the child of everybody. Like at some different points, you can say, think of like when your son grabs your hand and is amazed by the rain, or a baby duck, like you feel that childlike sense of wonder and deep sense of who a person really is.
Yeah, that sense of first time, you know?
Yeah. And I never felt like I lost that sense of who Tomy was, and I could see him for who he was. So even though he had made choices that I didn't agree with, he had never made choices the whole time I've known him, since we were 6 years old, that had ever negatively impacted me. And so I just told him, I'm putting my full trust in you. Like, I believe that you would never do anything to negatively impact my life or my kids' life.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting is, as you're talking about this, and you said you produced opportunities for people. You got adopted children. In a way, you adopted Tomy to a degree. You know what I'm saying? It sounds, you've run nonprofits. It sounds like you've provided a lot of opportunities for a lot of people. That's a big deal.
By the way, I make that joke that she did the adopt a felon program and just walked through the jail, like through the cages, and was like, I want that one. I'll
There's
save.
like a website, I don't know what it is, where it's like, it's the video phone inside.
Oh, the felon pen pal thing?
Like,
yeah.
Right next to commissary, there's the video phone.
Yeah.
And like guys are like doing their like essentially their profile.
Yeah, their Tinder profile.
Yeah. Don't forget to plus up my commissary so I can get that ramen. What's good?
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
Yeah,
jail.
get some soups.
I'm obsessed with prison culture. Not so much that I want to go or nothing, but we'll see. Jury's out. So, all right. So it's 2019. Tomy he's not letting you down now. He's not letting you down. And it's around this time that you guys find Warrior Rising. Is that right?
Yeah, right around that time.
What the hell is going on? Tell me about this.
Tomy's running a lot.
Yeah.
Running a lot. And
When you say running, I mean, he doesn't have any goddamn legs. What are you talking about?
So when she says running, says running, she means running, and it sounds funny because, like you said, I don't have any legs.
God damn it.
But I don't know how else to quantify what I'm doing, or qualify. I don't know. Qualify sounds better.
So you were on the back end of like 10 years of super bad shit. And
Yeah.
I imagine you wanted to put as much space between old Tomy and new Tomy as humanly possible. Well, but I will tell you this. You make tons of space to talk about this stuff very openly and very freely, which I love. But it sounds like was that what you mean by you say running, or just
No. Like, so I was training to do marathons.
Oh shit, you're talking about actual physical training.
Yeah. So how
Okay.
I established and maintained initial sobriety was to do something polar opposite of anything I had done in the last decade.
Yeah.
And so I became an endurance athlete in my wheelchair.
Hell yeah.
Chased a natural high this time.
Yeah, I did. I chased a runner's high. Very interesting. But yeah, I was running a bunch. I in total, I've ran 11 half marathons and 2 full marathons in my everyday use wheelchair. And I'm running a 3rd full marathon this year. I'm running the Marine Corps Marathon next month.
Oh hell yeah. What's your time usually for those?
So my very first full marathon, I ran in 3 hours and 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the second full marathon, I think, was 3:15 or 3:30, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at high 7 to mid 8-minute miles.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Which isn't what my pace is right now, but I was trying to. I needed to break myself, and the only way that I could figure out how to do it was the military model of push myself until everything breaks. And while I was doing that, I got asked to come into a boxing gym.
Okay.
And so I went into the boxing gym and was hanging out and stuff, and was first just training with them, just having fun. And then the coach, actually, when I first came in, to give you an idea of how the community viewed me, he's like, I know who you are.
Yeah.
And if I feel for 1 second that you're sabotaging my program, you're out of here.
Damn.
But then within 6 months, he's like, I want you to be a coach.
Let's go.
And so this is how Warrior Rising got brought into the picture. So if we go all the way back in time, when I was first injured, Jason had a for-profit company called Mission Essential.
Yeah, and you guys have known each other for like over 10 years.
Yeah, for 12 years.
Yeah.
So he had a for-profit company called Mission Essential. He brought me out to give a leadership vignette at one of his clients. And so we spoke, and then I spoke, and then we went and did another one. And while we were at the other one, we were sitting around a table talking about Jason's like, how do I help you guys?
Yeah.
And at the time I brought up the shoes I had been given and this house that I didn't deserve and all this stuff.
Stuff you just didn't even want.
Well, it's stuff that I wanted, but I didn't know how to value it. Like
Yeah.
when you get given a gift at Christmas, there's a reason we take the price tag off of it because we don't want you to know what we paid. And so not everybody, but a lot of people feel an obligation when they see somebody like me that they owe me something because I protected their freedom. And you get given a bunch of things that you don't know how to respect correctly.
That is a really great piece of insight. I use this I talk about this at the gym a lot, about why I don't do discounts or give away stuff for free. I use the free taco analogy. I tell people all the time, if you're given a taco and it tastes like shit, you know what I'm saying? You'll throw that thing in the trash after 2 bites. If you pay $8 for a taco and it tastes like shit, you will eat it. You will finish the taco. And it's like a value proposition. It's so interesting that because Jason has this ethos of not giving a hand out, but a hand up. So tell me, what did the hand up from Jason and Warrior Rising look like for you? How did you get integrated into this ecosystem?
So Dara recorded a video of me doing burpees with the boxing team.
Yeah.
And I'm doing burpees and I'm smiling.